did say that you see, for all the reasons you mentioned, the Fed continuing to hike from here. Do you still think that like a Fed's fund rate of like 7% is still in the realm of possibility here?
Inflation is moderating, and I think it will likely continue to moderate in the months ahead. However, I don't think we've tightened policy enough. Look, 5% short rates only match the most optimistic observations of inflation. Now, I do think inflation will come down. Inflation will come down to 4%, maybe to 3%, but with the humility that nobody's ever seen this before, and so there's considerable error band in any estimate I have.
Absolutely.
But I think the probability is higher than people expect that we do not get down to 2% for many, many years. And so, yeah, I think the Fed's going to have to, it's probably going to stop, pause. My guess is you're not going to see much in the way of interest rate increases, if any, in 2024, a political season. And as a result, we won't have fixed the inflation problem, and then the Fed is going to go back, and it's going to be even more difficult. And yeah, I think it's easy to imagine 7% rates, but that's probably when the Fed has to, resume tightening after it failed to achieve the 2% inflation objective. The other thing, and I'm not sharing anything that your listeners can't read for themselves, but you expect even more discussion than we're seeing now of revising the Fed's target inflation rate from 2 to up to 3, so that they, just because it's politically difficult to really channel Paul Volcker and do what's necessary to get inflation back under control.
Got it. So they basically, you see likelihood of a moving of the goalposts here, right? Which is
well, whether they do or they don't, I think you're going to hear a lot more about it. I think last time they made a mistake, I think it was a terrible mistake, was this average inflation targeting, this notion that we're not going to be forward-looking, we're not going to, when we see all the signals of inflation rising, typically that's when you need to take the punch bowl away. This time they decide, no, we'll just leave the punch bowl sitting there until everybody's well and truly drunk, and then address it. That was a rather unfortunate attempt to move the goalposts without admitting you're moving the goalposts. I think that's probably what you're going to see in the years ahead, if, and it still has to be said that it's an if, the Fed is not successful getting inflation all the way back down to 2% in this cycle. They will come up with some convoluted discussion of why their new approach allows a 3% inflation rate, even though their long-term target is 2%.
Okay. Let me just pound through a couple of questions related to this that have come up on this channel recently, just so we can fully square where you are. If I understand what you've said so far, you think the Fed is still very much spooked by inflation. They're going to keep hiking. At some point, they will pause. They will hold it for a good while. And like you said, they probably don't want to raise the closer we get to the election, because there's going to be a lot of pressure on them not to, right?
Especially since unemployment's going to be rising, right? I mean, I think that's a pretty good forecast. Look, we've got the yield curve inverted by over 100 basis points, and we know that monetary and fiscal policy has tightened a lot, and that operates with a multi-quarter, even multi-year lag. So I think the probability is just pretty darn high that we're going to have rising unemployment. Think of unemployment rising from 3.4 to 5.5 in the middle of election season. It's really hard for the Fed to come in with rapidly rising unemployment, even if 5.5 or whatever it is, 5.5 remains at most people's estimate of normal, full employment rate, the trend is going to get all the news, and it's going to be just enormously politically difficult for the Fed to continue hiking in that environment. So yeah, I think 2024 is going to be a pause.